Hello, hello, hello. How y'all doing? Before I get into the question of the day again, I want to take a second to say thank you all for sharing, liking, commenting, supporting any which way you do, following us on social media, whether that's our new IG page, our new Facebook page, our new LinkedIn page, because they are all new, and my utilization of social media to put Healthcare Boulevard more on the stage of and ears of those who may be of interest to it, or of those that it may be of interest to. It's pretty new. I'm navigating this as I go. I was mentioning to Sabrina when we were recording that I have a new goal, and that is to eliminate, well, maybe not eliminate, but decrease the amount of filters or fillers I use when I'm talking. And if you've heard this before and you're not new here, you may notice I use a lot, and I'm trying to decrease that. In doing that, you may hear some pauses here and there that maybe I didn't have in the previous episodes, and just know that I'm trying to consciously take my time as well in talking. I'm generally more of a fast paced go 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 person. It's just my personality. And so I'm hearing myself more doing this than I ever ever would. In fact, my siblings will tell you, usually when we have a recording of me talking, I usually have them turn it down. So it's very ironic and very surprising that I've chosen to host and create a podcast. But however, I do want to be a better speaker and a better interviewer, since a lot of this is interviewing. I want to get better at that. And so my first goal at attacking that and getting to that vision of me being a better interviewer and a better host is eliminating my arms and my fillers that I use. So I hope I'm getting better. I literally just started this today. My interview with Sabrina is the first one where I really put this in action, and so I really hope y'all enjoy the interview a little bit better with less filters. Let's get into the question of the day then. True or false? ABA therapist is only for children with autism. The answer again will be at the end of my chat with the guest. Enjoy. Hey y'all, I hope you're well. Welcome to another episode of Healthcare Boulevard. This is a podcast where we shine more light on healthcare, and our goal here is to provide more options to people looking to choose healthcare as a career path, regardless of their background. My name is Senaka Pomo, and I am your host and creator here. I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your support. Remember, you can tune in on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Healthcare Boulevard, Vardians, how y'all doing? Welcome back. We are here for another episode, another interview, and I'm here with Sabrina today, who is a BABC. I hope I got that right. But I'm going to welcome her in and we'll get this started. Sabrina, how you doing? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm doing good. How are you?
I am well, thank you. So let's start with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Sabrina. I carry many titles with my profession, within my profession, I should say. I'm a master's level clinician. I'm a board certified behavior analyst. That's the BCBA. And I'm also a licensed applied behavior analyst, where I have my state licensure. So that's LABA. So my name, then there's the MA, BCBA, LABA all combined.
Okay, so let's digest that a little bit. So the BCBA is board certified behavioral analyst.
Yeah.
What's the LABA for? And what's the difference?
It's basically the same thing, different in governing bodies. So the BCBA specifically governs all behavior analysts. that's where I went to do my board exam, board exam to get my certification. And then the licensed applied behavior analyst is a state licensure. So working within the state.
Okay, I see. And so when, let's say, you wanted to practice somewhere else, then you still keep the BCBA, but that LABA will turn into whatever it is for that state. Is that correct?
Yeah. So some
Okay.
states, they have LBA instead of LABA. Other states might have different requirements, but the certification I can carry within every state in the United States. But then to practice in that state, I would have to apply for the
Okay, but you
licensure.
don't have to take a new test or anything like that.
Some states actually do require you to take another test, I believe.
Hmm.
I don't quote me on that, but I
No,
do think that
no.
in New York, you
Okay.
have to take an exam in order to get your state licensure, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, so it's on a state to state basis. I'm sure they have different
Yeah,
requirements. Okay. What a joy. um,
definitely.
okay, so one of the easiest questions, but also is very loaded, is how do you describe your position, your profession to somebody who perhaps have never heard of it?
So I would say that I'm a scientist.
Okay.
um, I would, I'm just kidding. I would describe myself as a clinician who serves individuals and families diagnosed with autism and or other developmental disabilities to help them manage behaviors and also increase their skills through learning, safety, community skills, social skills, language skills, among other things.
Right. Okay. And for you, you have a master's degree, is that correct?
Yes, I have a master's in applied behavior analysis.
Okay. And do you need it? Oh, well, not do you need it? Can you get, is there a PhD or doctorate level to this field?
Yes, actually. So the certification BCBA becomes a BCBAD when you have
Okay.
a doctorate.
Gotcha. Okay. And right now, what settings are you working in?
Right now, I'm actually working in home primarily, just in home. So I go to the clients' homes.
Okay. So you go to the client's home and you're seeing I don't want to say patient, the children, or the client. Who else is in your team when you're practicing or at work?
So who else is on my team?
Yes, as a practitioner in your professional team.
Okay, so I would be considered the supervisor for the case. So as a supervisor, I have a supervisee under me, which will be a behavior therapist or a registered behavior therapist. Registered just means that you took your state board to become credentialed.
Right.
So my supervisees are the ones that are going in and they're implementing all the treatment protocols that I have suggested for during treatment planning or whatever the recommendations that I made to insurances to get approved for services. They're
Mm-hmm.
the ones in the home doing the direct service mainly. And I come and I oversee the programs through supervision. And then, or I'm also meeting with the parents to provide parent training at the same time or at different
Okay.
times.
Okay. Funny story is actually I had a one of my guests, and believe her episode is coming out like in the end of this week or next week. She's an ABA therapist. So she was the first in your field that I had on here, and I didn't know Jack from anything when it comes to ABA therapists. And she actually went through it and, gave us a little bit of the background as to what she is and what the position she holds, and mentioned BCBA. And I was like, I've never heard that acronym. Let me find them and see what the difference is. And let's
That was
all
me
learn
years ago.
together.
That was me years ago when this is how I actually got into the field. I was working at a dental office as I guess, a customer service receptionist.
Hmm.
And I was finishing up my bachelor's. I went to school to get my sociology. Um, I was a sociology major, I'm sorry. So
Okay.
I was majoring in sociology, minor in psychology, and while I was just finishing up, I was like, what's the next step for me? Do I
Mm-hmm.
stay where I am right now in the dental office? So do I become a dental hygienist? And the doctor was there, Dr. Ijaz, and I kind of asked her, like, what do you think about me going up into this field since I'm already here?
Right.
And she was like, there's actually a huge need for BCBAs. Have you ever heard of that? And I'm like, no. And she said one of her friends are BCBAs in the state that I was previously in, and there is a huge need. And I went on the computer, looked it up, and ever since that, it's kind of like took its own course. I just
Wow.
went straight. After I graduated with my bachelor's, I applied for my master's immediately, and I finished up my master's in a year and a half, got all of my supervision hours, and here I am now. So since 2019, that's when I kind of started that course on track to become a BCBA, and now I'm a BCBA.
Wow. Congrats.
Thank you, thank you.
It's always exciting, and that's usually one of my first questions as well. So I was heading there, and I appreciate you taking that right off my mouth. It's always exciting to see how people hear about their field, especially the I call it allied health, and that would be
Yes.
your position, my position. I had a respiratory therapist here yesterday. So all of those fields that are very important in the field of medicine that are
Mhm.
usually not the first thought when a young male or female is thinking about becoming a healthcare provider.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you sharing that journey with us. Now, what diagnosis are you helping with, or are you treating essentially?
So the demographics that we work with, primarily, I see children.
Mm,
For diagnosed with autism, I've met children who've had global developmental delays. Also, simultaneous diagnosis is going on, so it could be autism paired with PTSD,
mm,
anxiety, OCD, bipolar disorder. That's
mm,
what I've mainly seen so far. There are many other diagnoses as well, but
mm-hmm.
primarily for children, there is an autism diagnosis. I've also seen youth and adults alike that also share similar or different diagnoses as well.
Okay, that's exciting. So, for those patients, I mean, I keep saying patients because that's the word we use, but for the clients who uh, do have a combination of diagnoses where one is more psych, do you work with or communicate with the psychiatrist or psychologist, or you treat the autism or behavioral problem, and the psychiatry take care of the other more so mental disorder?
Yeah, so typically we kind of stick to whatever programming we suggest on a behavioral or a skill deficit level. And if the client does have a diagnosis where it's more psych related, we do tend to make sure that all of the medical variables that are taken into place are specifically geared towards that provider, but we do provide a collaborative effort where there's team meetings in general about the client. We're all coming together to see, okay, what's working, what's not, what's been progressing, how can we integrate to better help either learn a skill or to lessen a behavior.
Right. Okay. And let's go back to the dynamic between you and the ABA therapist. So, from
Okay.
my understanding thus far, you are doing the treatment plan, and more so communicating with parents about if there's anything changing and what they can do. And the ABA therapist is more so on the ground. Is that the dynamic from what I'm understanding?
Yeah, so typically the therapists are, I want to say they're the soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
they're
Mm-hmm.
all, they're really doing a lot of the lead work, getting things going. I'm there at the start, so from intake, I'm there. So I go in, gather all the information about, why was the client referred, what's going on with the family, what's more significant for them to work on to make their lives better. So
Mm,
after I do my assessment, skill assessment, assess behaviors, concerns, and I write up my treatment plan. I submit it to insurance, and after we get the approval, I go in, collect information, we collect data, we call it baseline data. And that's just basically assessing, okay, where is the child's level of learning right now? And after we do that for a period of time, then we're able to specifically write programs that we can help to teach the learner or lessen or do some more self-management in the home. And I'm only there for about 2 hours per week, probably doing that. Whereas the direct worker, which is the ABA therapist or the behavior therapist, they are approved to be there for 20 hours of the week.
Okay. So you are spending less time with the patient, but with the client, but seeing more, overseeing what's happening. And do you then have more clients than the ABA therapist?
I want to say yes and no,
Okay.
because the ABA therapist, if there's a client that has, say, 20 hours of services dedicated to them, and for some reason that therapist is able to have a schedule allotted for that 20 hours, they probably only have about 10 more hours dedicated to another client. So yes, but then if it's a smaller hour requirement, then of course they'll have more clients. Typically for the companies that I've worked for so far, there's been a dedicated interest in work-life balance. So we have about 5 to 8 clients, but I know that varies based on different agencies. So I want to say yes and no to answer your question. It just really depends. But the therapists do play a great role in the home, because they are there more than the clinicians are there, because after we write the programs and they're there doing their direct service, we get to come and supervise them for a certain amount of time. It could be only for 2 hours per week. And I'm also doing case planning, case management, and I'm also meeting with the parents separately for parent training.
So tell me more about the parent training. What is that? How does that complement what you're doing with the kids?
So for parent training, it's basically meeting with the parents, whatever treatment protocols we put together for the child, the youth, or the adult. For parent training, we kind of combine that. So whatever the direct therapist or the ABA therapist, I'm just going to say ABA therapist, it makes things easier if you're familiar with it also. So whatever the ABA therapist is doing in the home, we're trying to replicate that and have that done by the parent also. So that's where the parents can address any concerns they've been having, how they think things have been going with what we've been teaching them, whether they want to role play, whether we want to model what's been how to address certain things when they happen. Parent training is also a time for them to understand and learn more about what ABA is, applied behavior oh my God, I keep messing that up. Applied behavior analysis. I want to keep saying analyst so bad, but applied behavior analysis.
Right. Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah, it's like teaching, modeling, role playing, just getting feedback. We're looking at data also. If the parents are collecting data, we're sharing ideas about program goals, because it's very family integrated and individualized. So it has to be what they believe is important and what's socially significant for them. So there might come a time where they're like, you know what, we don't believe that this goal that we selected is the one that is the most pertinent right now. Maybe we want to work on something else that's really more concerning. And I really think you need to take a look at this or address this.
Right. Okay. And what are some of your favorite part about your profession?
Oh my God, I have so many, but I believe the best one is when I'm able to connect with families and see their progress, build their skills, and I'm learning new things about them through their eyes and their perspective. And I think the best part is really when the parents and the individuals can come to me and say, hey, you really made a change in my life. That really is heartwarming, and that motivates me more and then makes me fall in love with the field more because I love what I do. So that is motivation and reinforcement for me.
Oh, that's exciting. That sounds good. What are some of the challenges you faced thus far?
Hmm. I would say the challenges is really knowing how to manage burnout
Yeah.
because this takes a toll on you. Sometimes it can take a toll on you emotionally and mentally. And what I mean is you're doing a lot of work. You're doing a lot of writing, you're doing a lot of problem solving, case planning, you're a supervisor. There's a lot of roles and a lot of work that goes into this. So a lot of times, for me personally, when I just started, I'm a newly minted BCBA, they call it.
Right.
So I feel like I had a lot to prove, in knowing that I can get this done, I can fill out a report on time, and I was really pushing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized is that I was working past 6 p.m. sometimes, 6 p.m. So I'm
Mm.
at 10 a.m., 6 p.m., and at 8 o'clock, I had a bright idea and I just had to get it out. So I didn't know how to juggle, like, okay, Sabrina, you need to turn it off. You can do this again tomorrow. You don't have to push yourself this hard.
Right.
So really, like, putting yourself first, it's been a struggle for me personally, but just managing burnout, I feel like internally in the field in general, a lot of BCBAs will say that that's number one thing. You have
Mm-hmm.
to know how to juggle, those boundaries.
So how do you then cope with that stress and time management
I
essentially?
One thing that I have learned is that I need to take my time. I need to take my time. And as
Yeah.
a clinician, I have the credentials. Not saying I have the right, but I have some knowledge on how to maneuver myself and how to do things.
Right.
So I don't try to get ahead of myself. If I need help, I will ask for help, seek help, and accept help
Mm.
willingly.
Mm.
And also being really clear about what my boundaries are. I don't answer my phone after 6 p.m.
Mm.
anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
don't respond emails in the night after I've already clocked out. I start my morning without looking at my phone, my emails until it's time to actually clock in. Um, I just take my time and know that I'm doing my best. That's
Right.
how I've managed to create those boundaries for myself now. At first, it was really hard, but now I'm like, no, I'm gonna respond when it's time to respond. There's no emergency, so I know,
Right.
okay, it's time to turn this switch off, and I know when to turn it on.
Right. And that's hard, especially, as we're not as new as I am with provider, but still, you haven't been in the field for like 10 or 20 years or anything like that. So juggling that and then also juggling work life balance, how do you do that? Because you have responsibilities outside of work, and you want to take care of that and also be your 100% at work. How do you manage all of it? And also
hmm
manage to have fun. That's another thing. Tell us how you do it.
I know it's so hard because, especially when you're goal oriented, with
Mm-hmm.
me going into the field, I finished my bachelor's and kind of just went straight ahead into my master's, like no breaks
Mm-hmm.
at all. So for me, I had a set goal in mind. I'm going to go through this journey. In the end, I want to accomplish so much. So I wasn't pacing myself, and then that leads to lack of enjoyment. So no time for social time with your friends, stuff like that. So I had to
Right.
really not focus on my academia, and now I'm focused on balancing how to integrate my friendships into my life without worrying
Mm.
about where I am in my academic life or my professional life. So I'm actually being intentional about, okay, I'm making plans to go out. I'm going out. I'm not going to cancel because I have an exam to do. I
Mm-hmm.
can balance studying and enjoying my time as well.
Right, right. One thing I've found once I entered the workforce is I was actually thinking I was at the gym last time and I was like, man, I really, really need to like just say tell my patients, especially patients with like diabetes or hypertension, high cholesterol, which are the three ones that we usually as people in my position or telling them, work out and eat well and all of that stuff. Nothing we have, heard before. But I was thinking, man, it's so much harder to do when
It
you are,
is. It
you
really
know,
is. You have to challenge yourself.
it really is because you're like, well, especially if you're somebody who's decently in shape, like you're not like there yet, where you're diagnosed with these bad diseases yet, you're like, well,
Hmm.
I'm fine, I can just go and make my money, who needs and I
Right. I
find
feel like,
myself actively like have
yeah,
to okay, stop.
right. Because you tell yourself that to make yourself feel better. Because it's like, really, no, I'm actually not fine. I could really use a drink right
Yeah.
now. I
Yeah.
could really use a venting session right now with my
Yeah.
girlfriend.
Yeah, for real. For real. So yeah, it's something that we're learning as we go. How about that?
Definitely.
So tell us, what are some growth and leadership opportunities as a BCBA?
So, in an organization, some growth opportunities that I've seen, especially when I actually was an ABA therapist, I didn't know if I told you that before I became a BCBA. So, when I
No.
graduated with my bachelor's,
Okay.
I got my first job in the field as a behavior therapist
Okay.
um, while I was going to school to get my master's to become a BCBA. So
Okay.
I've been around a lot of wonderful BCBAs actually that were my supervisors. Some, since I've known them until now, some have opened up their own practice, have their own agencies.
Mm.
Um, Others have been promoted to either clinical director. I've seen positions for program directors, assistant directors, and that's just really supervising the BCBAs and the RBTs that are under them. So just becoming a supervisor for BCBAs and RBTs.
Right.
And just opening up your own practice. Those are the ones that I'm familiar with. I know that there's BCBAs that work in different types of organizations. So
Mm.
one of them is become a OBM, which is the organizational behavior manager, or to work in behavior management or work with
Okay.
business.
So what then are some settings, since we're on the subject, what are some different settings that we can find people in your field working at?
Um, so different settings that you can find BCBAs will be in schools,
Mm.
centers, which is just center-based ED services, in home, which is what I do. I know that there are BCBAs that work at hospitals as consultants.
Mm.
Um, I want to say you can find BCBAs in mental health facilities. Um,
Okay.
but that's what I know so far.
Mm. Mm. And what I know you're still getting your way around and totally settling into it, but what are some more so long-term educational and professional aspirations for yourself?
For me, I
Hmm.
aspire to be an excellent clinician. I
I
don't
love
know
it.
what that means because I don't want to be perfect. That means for me that I just want to continue learning. I'm interested in continuing, like I'm dying to learn. It's so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will go for feedback from clinicians who are well versed, more seasoned than I am, and I would just tell me what you think.
Yeah.
So I'm open to opportunities and learning. I want to open up my own practice down the line, and
Hmm.
I also want to continue my education. I want to get my doctorate in clinical psychology to do
Okay.
more research. I'm interested to see how ABA aligns with my own interest, which is in childhood trauma and how that impacts youth growing up.
Mm.
um, those are really my aspirations so far. I'm pretty sure
Okay.
that it would
Right.
evolve into something else, but it's all aligned.
Okay. That's beautiful. Now, as far as the training for BCBA, how long was that once you were already in the program?
So for me, it took 1.5 years, and that's
Okay.
including summers. So I had no breaks. So I started
Okay.
in the summer and I went straight and I finished in December. So that took about 1.5 years. I know there's programs that do 2 years, 2.5 years. It all depends on the pace and the amount of classes people are taking and the structure of it. Mine was an intensive practicum, so it was that way for a specific reason to kind of push us to do it and finish at a certain time. And then
Right.
within that, I also had to be doing group supervision at the same time, as well as working to obtain my supervision hours.
Okay. So did you have uh, in essentially didactic and then supervision slash clinical, or was it intertwined?
So group supervision typically happens at school, so it was a whole class when it itself that we had to attend weekly for 2 hours, and that's what counted as our group supervision. And then our individual supervisor, we would meet them when we're not working to go over different indirect and direct things and learn more about the field. Usually we go by what the task list has, which is what we're supposed to learn as a BCBA to prepare for our exam. So we go
Okay.
over the task in our group supervision and our individual within our with our individual supervisors.
Okay. And as far as keeping your education up to date, as we know, medicine and just science in general changes so often, how do you try to keep your education up to date?
I love that question. Science is all, that's for sure. One of
Yeah.
the requirements for BCBAs is that we definitely stay up to date with the latest research.
Mm.
We have to, there's different ways to do it, attending workshops, reading literature. We also have to, in a 2 year cycle, we need to complete 32 continuing education credits.
Oh, okay.
Um, and the categories can range from general, and it has to also include ethics. And that's basically when your renewal is coming up. So for the day you pass your exam, from that date to the 2 years, you have to complete all of that,
Mm.
complete a renewal, and pay your application fee to get recertified.
Okay. And last question before I let you go. Any word of advice for aspiring BCBA therapist? Sorry,
Oh my God, a lot.
is that overdoing it? BCBA therapist? I don't know if I was supposed to add the therapist at the end.
No, you didn't have to. You could also say behavior analyst,
Okay.
but that's fine.
Okay.
So I have a couple. The
Yes,
first one
please.
is just to give yourself credit at whatever stage you are in your journey, whether you're just applying for graduate school, you just finished your first class, you just graduated and you need to study to take the exam. Give yourself credit for each step of the way, not
Mm-hmm.
when you pass your exam or when you get your first job within the field.
Mm,
Every step of the way, praise yourself.
mm,
If you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Go back to your drawing board. As scientists, we're supposed to adapt, modify, change, and habituate to the environment.
mm-hmm.
I would also say to begin with the end in mind. So there needs to be a clear direction of you knowing what you want and being intentional about it. So that helps you when you're going through difficult situations. So graduate school is not easy. You have to
Mm-hmm.
maintain
It's
a
not.
grade. So when you're facing a difficult class, just remember that you're beginning with the end in mind. What is my goal? What is my why? So when you feel that stress, you don't have to feel excitement in order for you to get through your class. You just know this journey I took it for a reason and I need to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Just stay in the moment and enjoy it while you can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great advice. It's amazing how I don't know if you feel this, but I felt like those are things that I number one needed to hear more when I was in school, and number two I needed to practice it more because I was
Definitely.
definitely I was definitely like, I'm here for one thing and one thing only. Let's get this diploma and start working.
I know. I know
Yeah,
exactly what you mean because that was me too.
yeah.
When I graduated, I didn't feel like I celebrated myself enough. Like, hello, you just
Mm-hmm.
did a master's program with two children, not just one. I was pregnant at the time too,
Oh my
and
gosh.
COVID-19 happened also. So I was going through a lot. My family was
Yeah.
expanding, going through so many changes, and I graduated and I was like, I'm going to celebrate after I pass the exam. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like I had celebrated those moments because each moment matters because every step I took led me to where I needed to be. So I didn't need to celebrate at the end. I should have celebrated the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I did the same thing. And especially with us, COVID graduates, and it's like, okay, there's already everything happening. And now you're like, let me get in here, get past this test. And really, that's when I can celebrate, because
Yeah,
I am not worthy of celebrating myself until I can.
exactly. We need to give ourselves that validation because we worked
Yeah.
hard for it.
Yeah, no, we did. It definitely wasn't easy. And you even more so with children. Oh my goodness. I can't imagine. You are a
Oh,
champion. You are a champion, sis.
thank you. It was not easy, but I got it done with my babies. I got it
Yes, you
done.
did. You sure did. Oh, that's amazing. Well, Sabrina, I am so glad you came. You took the time to join me today. We had such an amazing time, and I know you have your babies, and you were able to take some time away from them. I'm sure they're getting ready to wake you up and keep you up.
I hope
So,
not. Knock on wood. Hope not.
before that happens, let me let you go to sleep so you can sneak in some sleep before that happens. How's that?
Definitely. I need it.
Again, thank you again for joining. Have a beautiful, beautiful evening.
Thank you so much for having me and finding me. It's so funny that you found me on LinkedIn because I remember one of my other aspirations was to network with other women in the field, my field,
Mm.
or other fields, just to
Mm-hmm.
connect with. And you messaged me, and I was like, "God, what are you doing here? Are you playing tricks on me?" And I was nervous at first, but I'm like, you know what? Let's do it.
Yeah, no, you're amazing. And like I said, I started this thing and I was just like, I'm still looking at it. And this year I was like, I have one goal. I want to be able to get ahead of myself, have the interviews ready so that when I have time, I can edit them. And I don't want to be like, okay, I need to publish an episode. Let me find somebody to interview. Um, and I'm reaching that goal this year. I have like a handful of interviews ready for me to edit and publish. So I'm doing that. So now I'm like, let me tackle the next thing. And that is I say a lot. Like,
That's okay. You
oh,
only said it once. You
it
only
was
said it
better
once. I was
today.
tracking. I was tracking
Thank
it.
you. I appreciate the accountability. Because I was like, I need to get better. It's like that's usually what I do, and I'm sure you do similar thing in different areas of life. Is just once you feel like you're getting better at a goal, then okay, let's see what else we can tackle because there's always something to improve in many aspects
Yeah,
of our life. So
definitely.
so I'm like, okay, I actually was watching a YouTube today on how to like get rid of filters, and I'm like, well, let's start with Sabrina.
Well, guess what? It's only up from here. You're doing a great job because if you only did it once tonight, I'm sure the next time it's gonna be zero.
Thank you. Thank you. That's the goal. And I appreciate that. I'm like, I don't need it to be like perfect because perfection is not what I come here for, but I do want to deliver some level of elegance and, grace with this episode because everybody here is amazing. My guests are amazing and I
Yeah.
want to make sure that I'm not hiding that with all my arms.
Yeah, definitely. And I enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to hearing more of your episodes, your podcast. I've listened to a few episodes and I really love them. And maybe we can connect again down the
Absolutely.
line.
Absolutely. All right, guys, Sabrina, have a beautiful evening. Thank you again.
You too. Thank you
All
so much for
right.
having me. Bye.
Of course. Bye.
All right, back here for the answer, and it is false. Applied behavioral analysis, which is ABA, is used in different fields, other fields such as organizational behavioral management, marketing, classroom/school, animal training, gerontology, forensics, and so forth, and even sports. So, autism is not the only diagnosis wherein ABA therapy is utilized. It may be the most common and the most mainstream, but it's not the only way ABA therapy is utilized. Alright, y'all. Alright, that's all I have for you today. Thank you again for joining me. I appreciate you. Please subscribe, follow, like, comment, and share. And stay blessed.